You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Cricket Podcast, where we are moving on to the 100. We've done Test cricket, the boring old game, 150 years of nonsense continued there, and now we're on to the sexy stuff, the 100. It's underway. The magic of the white ball comp, the English white ball franchise comp. Before we get to that, though, we're going to talk about the magic of Manscaped, aren't we, Max? Tell me all about it.
Well, Jack, Manscaped is a wonderful company that provides you with all sorts of wonderful tools for your balls. That's just copy that I made up. Head over to manscaped.com and enter the code CricketPods to get yourself 20% off on and free shipping. You mustn't forget the free shipping on a whole host of goodies. You've got the performance package, the platinum package, the with all the good stuff inside, your lawnmower. Is it 5.0 now, Jack? I
believe so. Yep.
The beard hedger for the facial fuzz as well, and a variety of other aptly named tools for your hair removal needs.
Yep, that's right. Head over to manscaped.com. Use the code CricketPod for 20% off plus free shipping. I'll repeat that once more for people who weren't listening at the back. Manscaped.com. Use the code CricketPod and you get 20% off plus free shipping on anything that you would like to order. So get yourself involved there. Tidy yourself up. There's still a good 6 weeks of summer left in the UK. Plenty of time to get yourself down to the Brighton nudist beach and make sure you look like you are in fine fettle when you do so. Max, let's talk the 100. We are beginning our coverage of this year's competition 4 or 5 games in. So I'm going to really, really briefly explain where things stand in the women's and men's comps. Starting with the women. The Welsh Fire women, which will never not be a funny name, if you're honest. Welsh Fire, fine. As soon as you start putting a gender on the end of that, it sounds like a working title for Fireman Sam, basically, doesn't it? But you know, what are you going to do? They're top of the women's group. They've won 4, lost 1. Going great guns, heading towards the next round. Then there's a bit of a logjam. Places 2 through 6, so that's Northern Supercharges, London Spirit, Oval. I suppose that would work, wouldn't it? Oval. Birmingham Phoenix and Manchester Originals on 4 or 5 points each. Blimey, there's too many numbers. So that could go anywhere. There's going to be some really great games in the women's comp in the run-up to the conclusion of this year's competition. All of those teams have got 4 matches to play, so they're exactly halfway through, and all of them will be hoping for a top 3 spot. And then Trent Rockets and Southern Brave have been pretty awful, to be honest. They have 1 win between them, and Southern Brave, they might have 0 points, but were lucky enough to... Well, I don't know about lucky enough. They were involved in one of the 2 ties in the women's group. I demand a super over. That's my first comment on the 100 this year. In the men's competition, we'll start with the weaklings. It's been a pretty average season for Manchester Originals. They've played 4, lost 4. London Spirit, after a little bit of... I don't know if they've flickered into life over the last couple of years, but they weren't awful for the last couple of years. They are awful this year, though, with 1 win from 4 matches. Then there's a little bit of a sandwich in the middle. Trent Rockets, Welsh Fire, Birmingham, they all have records of 2-2, all looking up at Northern Superchargers, Freddie Flintoff's men, Southern Brave, complete with Jofra Archer, and Oval Invincibles, who do look a little bit overpowered for this competition, it must be said, who have all won 3, lost 1. Max, there's my summary without going into any of the performances on an individual basis. Before we get into players that have caught our eye, but I haven't actually been to any games this year. You have. You've been to a lot. Has it been good? Have you been enjoying yourself?
It's been interesting, actually. I am really keen to see the attendance and viewing figures after the 100's over compared to last year, because there's been, I don't know, the vibe I've got is not as much excitement as last year than the years before. And I don't know if that is my outward look on the world of cricket clouding how I view my experience, because as you know, there was an IPL followed by a World Cup, and
Yeah.
that preceded a different World Cup, and then we had an England West Indies series. But essentially, there's been a lot of white ball cricket. Apart from that, that England West Indies series was a nice break from white ball cricket, but there was so much T20 going on. There was MLC just before it as well, so it does feel a little bit like, especially with that World Cup, that there was kind of some T20 fatigue, or rather, let's can't call it T20, can we? Because it's not actually T20 cricket. Short format fatigue setting in, but I don't know if that's just me or if that's shared more widely. But I've got a sense from the Blast as well, to be honest, that there haven't been as many sellouts as you might expect, or if they are sellouts, not everyone's been turning up at the Oval, and that's for Thursday night, Friday night games, prime time, 6:30 p.m. And it's just there's not been the energy at the grounds that I recall seeing in the last couple of years. I think some of that might have been related to the quality of the games, the games that we've had at the Oval so far. There was the opening game was a complete blowout on on both the men and the women's front, with Invincibles against Phoenix, and on Friday just gone it was pretty similar blowout. I mean, the Oval Invincibles women got absolutely pummeled by Northern Superchargers, and then the men's game looked like it was fizzling out until Donald Herrera looked for a second like he might pull off one of the most outrageous heists in the history of cricket. But there's definitely something missing this year. I don't know what it is, but there's something that's not quite there, and I think it might just be a sort of a general ennui.
I think cricket in general is having a down year. I think the 100 does well when it has kind of two things going for it. One, general public awareness of cricket. Last year we obviously had an Ashes series. I can't remember who. The year before that was the beginning of Baseball. The year before that, India were in town. All of those things created,
And it was new and shiny, of course, as well.
Yeah. And it was new and shiny. All of those things created a lot of buzz around the game and a lot more casual interest than cricket is used to. This year in the UK, or in England, I mean, like, let's allow the UK for a second. This year in England, as you rightly say, people who are engaged in cricket are coming off 4 months of non-stop T20 cricket, and frankly, lots of it lots of pretty average T20 cricket. I've watched, I mean, I don't know how much I watched, 60, 70%, 70%, let's say, of
so
all of
many
the games
hours of cricket
between the beginning of the IPL and the end of the World Cup. And I wouldn't say it was a vintage year in the IPL. There was a lot of weirdness going on with the pitches in that. It's the end of the auction cycle, so there's maybe a little bit of an imbalance between some of the teams. Lots of international players with at least half an eye on the World Cup coming up, either not turning up or turning up for a bit and then going home, or maybe not giving it full gas. I don't know. Then the World Cup itself was hamstrung by some pretty shoddy pitches, to be honest. I know, like, obviously an amazing final that we'll remember, but between USA beating Pakistan and the final, what happened? Like, what was one good story that happened in that time? Scotland nearly qualified. England had a little bit of a wobble.
USA did qualify, I suppose, but that was an extension.
Yeah,
the Bangladesh-Afghanistan stuff was fun.
Yeah, we're clutching at straws, though, aren't we? If we're saying Golbadine.
Gulbadine Naib's hamstring was the high point of between the beginning and the end of the World Cup. It might be true.
So you've got all of that, and there's the hardcore cricket watchers in this country. I don't know. There's a couple of million people. Let's say, might be a bit more. They've probably seen enough, there's not even from an England point of view, like the return of the conquering heroes dynamic. It's not like everyone is really excited to see World Cup winner Phil Salt, because he's not World Cup winner Phil Salt, is he? He's had quite a good IPL, had quite a decent World Cup, went out in the semi-finals convincingly. Phil Salt.
It doesn't have the same ring to it, does it?
It's much harder to bill Phil Salt as that and so you don't even have the kind of, let's see these guys in action. Obviously, there's no India players, so you can't see any of the World Cup winners. The South Africans have mainly eschewed it to go and play in Major League Cricket, or just have a flipping good rest.
Break.
So we're left with this tournament this year that kind of awkwardly placed. And as someone who, obviously, you've got your membership down at the Oval, you have to go to get your money's worth. I don't, and so I've been watching it, obviously, but mainly from afar. Then you've got the other 5-ringed elephant in the room, the Olympics, which is happening right over the top of the heart of the tournament, in almost exactly the same prime time viewing slots on one of the channels that, or one channel away, worst case scenario from this. And I'm going to be honest to cricket here. It's the Olympics is a much better sporting product than the 100 is able to dish up. All the guys in the 100, you've basically got two camps of guys in the 100. Blokes who are probably exhausted after 4 months of traveling around the world and not winning the World Cup. There's no World Cup winners there. It's just exhausted men.
Yeah.
And then like these kind of really good players, but slightly less well-known guys from the county circuit, who have, by the way, also just played in the T20 Blast for 2 months or a month and a half leading up to it, so aren't necessarily as fresh as they could be. And for some of them, to be frank, their county contract, that's where the money comes from. That's a more important gig for them to give their all to than the 100. I know you'll get on TV in the 100, and I know you might get a contract in ILT20 for £1 million to play cricket, and nobody watches and it doesn't matter. And that's probably the best job that anyone will ever get, going to Dubai to, but who cares whether you do well or not? Nobody cares. I know the 100 is technically a gateway to that, and so you are giving it your all. But like from an actual I need to play to survive perspective, what you do for Warwickshire kind of matters a bit more than what you do for the 100. So I'm watching the 100, Max. And I'm seeing it, and I can see there's some good players. And Sam Curran's performance on Sunday, for example, was as good as you will see in T20 cricket. The guy hits 51 off 21 balls, and then takes 5 wickets when the game looks like it's in the balance. He gets out both set batsmen, including Andre Russell. It's not like this tournament is devoid of stars. Andre Russell was there, primed to launch, win the game. Sam Curran nicks him off. It's definitely decent cricket, but I'm also looking at it and I'm thinking this definitely, these players, it doesn't matter to them that much. On the other channel, Amber Rutter is shooting at clay pigeons to win a gold medal. Not only is this the biggest event of the clay pigeon shooting calendar this year, or
it's the biggest scandal in Olympics history.
This is 4 years. This is like a 4-year tournament. You've got to be the best in Britain at shooting clay pigeons. Then you've got to be pretty good in Europe to qualify. And then you've got to practice a shit ton and get a gun and all sorts of stuff. I don't even know what you have to do. And then it all comes down to, can you shoot more clay pigeons than this woman from Chile? It's emotions on the line. She shoots one, it hits the pigeon, but the man says it didn't hit the pigeon, and then she says she hit the pigeon. They've got video evidence that it hit the pigeon, but they can't look at the video evidence for some reason, so it doesn't count. And then the other, but it's high drama. This is like the moment that Amber Rutter will be remembered for potentially the rest of her life. This will be, I'm sure she's got other things going on, but in public discourse, this person's entire existence is distilled down into, did the judge see the pigeon get shot? not the real pigeon. She did nearly shoot a real pigeon, but she pulled out of it at one point. And that's happening at the same time as Sam Curran bowling to I don't know who at Lord's in front of an 80% full crowd that mainly probably aren't really watching. They're just having a piss up in the sun. And I'm like, is this what cricket has to offer? Like, I'm a massive advocate for this sport. But like, we're doing it here. At the same time, we've got Major League Cricket that just ended. We've got the Global T20. We're going to go on into the Caribbean Premier League. And then there'll be something in October. I don't know what it is. And I'm wondering, like, maybe we could make it better. The whole thing. And it's not the 100's fault that it's caught up in that. I do quite like the 100. I've enjoyed all the games I've been to. Atmosphere generally pretty good. Definitely does engage with kids. It's a pretty cheap if you get the tickets early, day out. It's accessible. It tends not to be too boozy. It's great for the women's game. Get all these arguments. It's not going away. It's worth a fucking fortune. They're going to sell it, make loads of people rich. Some of that money will probably make its way down to like 8 or 9 nets across the whole of England. And to some extent, it gives the ECB a product which they do need. There's the economic reality here, a product that they can sell to Sky Sports and whoever around the world that can make them some bunts. The whole thing carries on. But I am watching it, and I'm looking at the Olympics, and I'm thinking like Major League Cricket, the Global T20. By the way, they had one game, they bowled 2 overs, decided it was too dangerous, had to stop. I mean, that could be worse. If you're having a go at the 100, it could be fucking worse. Like, but I am also like, do we really need to see the same players in a different kit again doing the same thing? But this time there's 20 balls less, or is there a different solution, Max? Answer it.
That's a tough question to answer, Jack. Because if I could answer that question, I'd probably have a fairly well-paid job high up in the ECB, I reckon. But I think there's a lot going on, isn't there? I mean, a lot's been made as well of these sort of like the one-game contracts coming in, because obviously the ECB started off launching into this 100 with the whole bravado of we want to make this. We want people to have identities. We want to have fans of the Northern Superchargers. I am a Northern Superchargers fan.
That's what it should be like. That is the right direction. They are right about that. Carry
100%. On. Yeah. But then on the flip side, you've got someone coming in to play one game for the Northern Superchargers because Johnny Rotten's still finishing up his, £1 million contract playing in Major League Cricket. And obviously that takes priority because they've got loads more money to throw around. And you're going to take that because, I want to be able to provide for my family when I stop playing cricket and don't have anything else to do with my life after I'm 35 and I'm completely lost. So that's a blocker to creating an identity with a side because, there are players and I like this player. I'm going to support this team. And then, this guy's now playing for someone else. So it makes it very difficult to make that connection that, like you say, it is a completely valid and fair thing to try and do to build excitement in a tournament. But then the building blocks to actually do that are quite troublesome. And you end up with the main people who are fans of certain franchises being just people who are Surrey fans. I'm an Oval Invincibles fan, but that's because I'm a Surrey fan and I go to the Oval and that's my team. So if you don't have a team that's in the 100, that makes it a bit trickier. There's quite a few people like that. So, adding another couple, which is the plan, will possibly help with that. But I think ultimately, and it's sad to say it, but the answer is money, because the answer is always money. And if you want to be able to compete and get the 100 up to the standing it needs to be to, I suppose, dominate that middle summer calendar and, take people away from, not take people away, but make the 100 the place you want to be rather than Major League Cricket. Make people's decision to be, well, actually, I might not play the last 2 games for my Major League Cricket team because I'm in the 100. But the only way to do that is to pay them more, isn't it? Because the top bracket is 125 grand, which is a pittance compared to what some other leagues can offer. And it's a short league. so they can't offer all that much, but that's obviously going to be the direction of travel, isn't it? With the investment they're looking for, trying to get some of the franchise sides from the IPL to throw some money in. That feels like that's where it has to go. Extra teams, more money for the players, more competition, more people wanting to turn out and watch it. But I think ultimately it's a bun fight, isn't it? That's what you've got to. You're trying to get to the top of this basically pile of gold that everyone is trying to take a bit out of, and it's a race to see who can get there and who can get the big shiny product that everybody wants to be a part of. And it's a bit sad, and that's why I think your ultimate point at the end, Jack, is that there must be something better we can do, but the ECB can't just magic up a wand and come up with something that will solve that. There has to be a cricket-wide thing.
Do you know what is unsexy, but I think would work better? Speaking purely from the 100 point of view, I'd massively invest in making it a local competition, and they're in a way they can't really do that because there's already
they've got the blast.
They've got the blast,
and and then one has to give.
Well,
I think that may happen in 5-10 years.
That,
yeah.
But I don't. Unless you find a way to give people £1 million or 500 grand, let's say 500 grand for the top, that probably gets people to come to London instead of going to play in front of 3,000 people for 700 grand in Dallas. Yeah. Maybe it doesn't, but like it gets some people to think that way.
Yeah.
Then if you can't do that, and I don't even really see why you need to do that, to be honest. Like the 100 isn't going to compete with the IPL on a quality front, and there's many reasons for that. One is the existence of Major League Cricket. Two is the fact that England is not as big a cricket market as India, and three is that most of the really marketable England players are going to be playing it for the England team. Like there isn't actually a way that you can construct a cricket calendar, I don't think, that doesn't have England test players sometimes unavailable for their 100 teams because they're playing test cricket. Like
because the 100 is the prime bit of the summer. It's
Well, yeah, but you when you can do the 100, what, in June when kids can't go? No,
that's what I'm saying. Yeah, the 100's in the prime bit of the summer. It kind of has to be there because of the school holidays and all the rest of it. But also, England Test cricket has to be somewhere there. Well,
the England Test cricket has to be there as well because
that's what. I'm agreeing. I'm agreeing.
Yeah, both of those things have to be there, and so that will never work. So what's your alternative if you want to grow, a local fan base? Make the atmosphere better, make it a saleable TV product based on the fact that there are loads of people there and it looks full and it looks exciting and it looks energized. Well, you have to spend some of your marketing budget on I don't know, on Benny Howe, raising Benny Howe's profile a little bit. Maybe it's not Benny Howe. I mean, like realistically, for what they want to do, it's probably people with a South Asian background. Like in England, the players at those franchises that the tournament is very obviously trying to market itself towards, you have to put some of those people front and center. And how you do that, or what how you do that, is, I think, fairly obvious. But that is that requires a decision to go down that local marketing route, and I still don't think they're in a position where they want to do that. I still think they're thinking, well, if we sell loads of the equity. By the way, we haven't really covered the 100 sale that much on this podcast. I'm assuming people know.
Or Hampshire.
They're selling 49% of each of the franchises to private investment. Why, an NFL owner would want to own 49% of a franchise based at Sophia Gardens? I don't really know. Maybe there's someone who wants to take a punt on that. Like it's sports investments have globally gone up a lot. Like maybe it's maybe I'm being dumb here and I think that's a silly thing to do. But maybe if you own the Boston Red Sox, you're like, actually that makes quite a lot of sense. I don't know where am I going with this? Nowhere really. They're selling it.
They are.
I don't. They're selling it to try and raise funds so they can get Heinrich Klaassen to turn up.
Yeah,
Does
but even
Heinrich
with 49,
does Heinrich Klaassen make the product better? Does it make it more valuable? I am not so sure, because you can watch Heinrich Klaassen for South Africa, you can watch Heinrich Klaassen for Hyderabad, you can watch Heinrich Klaassen in the SA20, you can watch Heinrich Klaassen probably in at least one other league. So you know, does the presence of Heinrich Klaassen for 1 month at Welsh Fire potentially in 2 years' time, because some NFL owner fronts the cash for Heinrich Klaassen to show up, increase the value of anything, or make the product better, or accomplish the aim of actually engaging a local community? No, I don't think it does.
maybe not. But does his absence
Does a high profile?
That?
No, I don't think so. I mean, this is where I'm driving at. I think you want to be more big bash. You want to think about who the audience is that you realistically can attract, and it isn't people in India as things stand. So shelve Heinrich Klaassen. It's definitely not people in South Africa. You want to attract a local audience. The prime local audience that you want to attract are people from a South Asian background. Maybe make some of those players franchise players. Maybe make them the poster boys for the tournament. Maybe think about it from that perspective, instead of being like, let's find out how we can front the cash so that Pat Cummins turns up, instead of fulfilling his Silicon Valley wet dream. Like, yeah, I don't know. A few people caught some strays there.
Yeah, well, yeah, but I guess the flip side to that is that, back to what we were saying before, if you look at a more big bash model and a local competition model, the blast is already there, right? So,
well, yeah, I don't know,
and that's it's the elephant in the room, isn't it? Really, I
thought the best idea in all of this was when somebody said, "Why don't we just have all 18 teams have a Premier League and a Championship?" And start with a top division of 8 where all the teams, and this was an idea floated around. It got voted down probably because it cost too much bunts. Have a Premier League. Everyone in this country understands what a Premier League is. You call something the Premier League, everyone understands. Like,
actually, a lot of other countries quite enjoy the concept of a league where you have promotion and relegation, because it doesn't happen all that often. Like, you look at all the sports leagues in America, and it's drafts and all the rest of it, and that's a completely different setup that actually people from other countries find interesting. And it's the same with the promotion relegation. It doesn't happen all that often. And
start from there. Have 8 teams in the top division. The 8 counties you've got at the moment. If you're in the top division, you get 3 overseas players. If you're in the bottom division, you get 2, or 4 and 2. If you want some overseas players, have 4 and 2. Put all your money, all your marketing money into one product. Everyone who's going to watch the blast, they've got a new thing. It's just called something else. Like, nobody really cares. Warwickshire, they're called the Birmingham Bears in the fucking blast, aren't they? Like, it's not that big a deal to rename them. Nobody at Warwickshire is like, I refuse to go and watch Birmingham Bears. No, they just go. Like, call Yorkshire Leeds, call Lancashire Manchester, or keep the existing names, basically. Northern Supercharges, that's a stupid name. Call them Leeds. And do it like that. Just model it on, but shamelessly rip off football. Wear the same kits as they wear in football, and
shorts as
go from there. Yeah,
shin pads.
Like, I mean, get the stars from the local Premier League team down to do TikTok videos. I mean, the most watched TikTok or the most watched social media ever produced by the 100 was Harry Kane doing some rage hitting. Like, it's just make it football, basically.
Clickbait.
There you go. There I solved
clickbait.
it. If you want to make the 100 compete with the Olympics, turn it into Premier League football. If the Premier League was clashing with the Olympics, people wouldn't be like, I'm not going to watch the Premier League because the players, I can just see them, and I like the blah 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 blah. No, people would still be like, Arsenal v West Brom. I'm tuning into that. I'm not even sure West Brom are in the Premier League, but I don't know, Max. I'm not saying I've got the solutions here, but if I know one thing about England, we love football. Don't half-ass it. If you're going to set up a league that's based on football, don't call the team Trent Rockets. Just call them Nottingham Forest. Cut out the middleman.
We'll have 6 teams in London.
Why not? You know, you could easily do that. Have 18 counties and have 2 based at Lords, and sell one to some cement.
So one to
baron.
Arsenal, one to Tottenham.
Do you want to talk about Hampshire? Because that's a really interesting story, actually.
Yeah, we probably should, shouldn't we? While we're here, we've gone on a ramble and a tangent, but yeah. So Hampshire being bought by the Delhi Capitals for 120 million pounds. That is huge.
So the reason they're doing this is just so they get the Southern Brave, right?
Yeah. I assume
That's
so. I haven't seen that written, but that was the first place that my mind went to when 1 week ago the ECB were trying to get people to put money into 100 franchises, but you can only have 49% because the 100 franchises need to be owned by the counties, and the Delhi Capitals go, "We'll have the county, thank you."
That's
maybe we'll add a bit. Maybe we'll invest a little bit more in Southern Brave, and then we get everything.
Because the county as well, if I'm not mistaken here, can sell they get to sell the 49%.
Yeah.
Or they no, actually that isn't how it works. The ECB sells the 49%, they get the 51%. So that isn't how it works. But like the Delhi Capitals, they can just presumably hoover up the other 49. Because nobody is going to buy 49% of a Delhi Capitals.
What the Delhi Capitals own? No.
Yeah, like that's Southern Brave is immediately a non-viable commercial product. You might get a few people that would buy a chunk as an investment, but yeah, that's it. I think it's interesting on a few fronts. So obviously, they get Hampshire. I don't know what the county of Hampshire is worth in financial terms. Probably
the whole area. Got some.
No. I mean, from like
beaches.
if you were to purchase a sports franchise or a sports club the size of Hampshire, like what are they? Wycombe Wanderers or something like that? I'm saying you could probably get them for 15 million pounds on the open market. Like it's not
a lot of money.
They pay quite a lot over the top for access to the 100. What I think it is interesting is it shows that the valuation of these 100 teams is probably quite high. In the order of maybe £1 billion for the lot. Which is kind of interesting. Any comment on that, Max?
Yeah, well, it shows that there's promise, doesn't it, for the 100? And it's quite interesting. It's quite an interesting view that we've landed on in terms of the result of this, because I'd have thought most people would expect the instant reaction from English cricket fans to Delhi Capitals bought Hampshire is, oh my God, it's end of days, Armageddon, apocalypse. And we've just gone, well, it just shows that the 100's worth actually quite a lot of money. Maybe there's a bit of promise to it. But I mean, it is interesting to see. And I am quite wary of what the implications are for the county side of things.
I'd agree with that. There's absolutely no reason whatsoever for them to give any shits at all about what happens to that county. The way player talent is procured in the 100, it isn't through an academy system, and they did it a bit in the first year, didn't they? You could kind of cream off some players, but it isn't like, at best you get a good look at some guys at your county.
There's no value in investing in their futures for your 100
championship is irrelevant. You can make a bit of money from the blast, but not really any serious money because there's not a huge TV deal there. Enough to keep a county going, but you're not spending £120 million to get access to the blast TV deal. Like that's not happening. So if you were running it in a really cutthroat way, and I'm not saying this is what they're going to do, they might just really like cricket, or they may see more utility in building up Hampshire as a franchise than I do. But if you were running it in a really cutthroat way, you just fire everyone at Hampshire. It doesn't matter how they do. You've got your hand on the golden goose. That's the franchise element to this. The Hampshire are probably giving James Vince 100 grand, 150 grand a year, maybe a bit more. Why would you do that? Get rid of him, throw him on the scrap heap. He can go and play at Surrey. Pick a couple of kids, save yourself 100 grand. You've got the 100 franchise. You'll annoy some county members, but they're kind of irrelevant. All you need to do is make sure the stadium's maintained so that England can turn up and play there, and the Southern Brave or Southern Capitals. I mean, that would be a stupid name, wouldn't it? They can turn up and play there, and you're kind of golden. Like I might not turn out like that, but it's if you're a Hampshire cricket fan,
it's in the range of possibilities, isn't it?
Yeah, and I don't really see how people get their hands back on Hampshire, if that makes sense. Like if it is, when a rogue football owner comes in and destroys a club, like it probably will end at some point. Like they probably will, either get bored or run out of money or whatever it is. The Delhi Capitals owners have paid so much for Hampshire relative to the market that there's no one's going to come in. No one's going to come in and pay them 50 million for Hampshire County Cricket Club. Like that's not enough. No one will even buy the rump of Hampshire for 50 million. The whole thing is the franchise comp.
Maybe when it happens, we can buy it for £1.
Maybe, yeah. We'll see. I don't know. Maybe Delhi Capitals would be great owners. I don't really know anything about them.
Also entirely possible.
Yeah. Max, we've gone on about cricket business in a kind of ramshackle way for probably too long now.
And without Ross as well. He'll be very sad to have missed out on cricket business.
He will be absolutely devastated to have missed out on probably a good 40 minutes of cricket business. So, sorry, Ross. Potentially sorry, listener. Sorry, Hampshire fans. Unless it all works out.
Okay. Esoteric episodes, but it's always good to keep the audience on their feet, isn't it?
Yeah.
On their toes. They might be sitting down.
Who's going to win, Josh Kerr or the Norwegian bloke?
Oh yeah, well, I've got to go. We got to go for the Brit, right? Even if he's a Scot.
Okay, well there you go. Good way to end the pod. Remember to click like and subscribe. Head to the show notes for links to Serious Cricket and Manscaped. If you go to Manscaped, use the code CricketPod for 20% off plus free shipping. Head over to Patreon, patreon.com/the Cricket Pod to give to us directly. And we are on social media at the Cricket Pod. We're going to lie down and think about cricket business for another. But maybe we should just start a cricket business podcast where we do 40 minutes on cricket business without any agenda or any notes, just pure speculation, like some improv comedy, but on financial matters.
It's what the people want.
Cricket financial matters. Maybe. Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye.